All right, so let's start this off with a warning. This is going to be a review of Animal Crossing New Horizons. It's not just going to be me talking about how much I love the game. Not to say that I don't really like this game, but I'm not just going to talk about what I like. I'm also going to talk about what I feel needs to be fixed or added in future updates. Things that I feel like they dropped the ball on. It's not just going to be a positive review. This is going to be a very in-depth review since the game has been out for a little while now, and I feel like it's time to give it a more detailed review than a lot of the early reviewers give it, especially because certain things have been brought to light that wouldn't be noticeable in just playing it for a very short amount of time. So if you can't handle constructive criticism aimed at this game, or if you're just not very good at handling other opinions than your own, I would suggest go look at a different review. This is going to be a very serious, very detailed review. So you have been warned. Also, I'm going to compare it a lot to New Leaf because that's really the only other Animal Crossing game that I played. I, before that, didn't have very much interest in more chill, laid-back games, so New Leaf was kind of my first step into the Animal Crossing world. So I'm going to be making a lot of comparisons directly to that, which makes sense because it was the direct predecessor of this game. So, here we go. Let's get started. So, I'm going to get started with the good. As with the last game, Animal Crossing New Leaf on the 3DS, this one, New Horizons, is a very chill, laid-back game. It's really great to just kind of relax, and especially with all the crazy stuff going on, if you know what I mean. It released at kind of just the right time where people really need a game like this, and I think that gives it a very big boost. There's a lot more that you can do in this game as far as customizing your environment, especially like changing the rivers and hills, putting furniture outside. You have more direct control than you did in New Leaf, but obviously more than any Animal Crossing game. Some of the creativity I've seen of people online, the stuff that they do on their islands, it's overwhelming and really goes to show that you could do just about anything you want to with this. As far as the goals and like what you're trying to do in the game, it really just lets you set your own goals. Some people are really gonna love that because there's no like missions or quests. I mean, there's the whole thing where you're trying to get KK to come and do a concert. And, like, there's a lot of little missions, like when Tom Nook wants you to go build the campsite, pick a spot for the campsite, for example, even though that's a quick one. But really, there's no set goal or mission to this game. You set your own. You set your own goals. And even the KK mission, you can do it pretty quick if you just spruce up the island with some decorations and stuff. Now, obviously, for people who prefer a more goal-oriented game, it might actually be a downfall because they want there to be goals or missions. They want there to be things they can tick off on a list. But if you're more of a collector or like a completionist, where like you want to collect every bug, you want to collect every fish, this is actually a really good game because you can sink a lot of time collecting all the bugs and fish and fossils. And a lot of the bugs and fish are seasonal, so it might even take you a very large amount of time to be able to collect each thing from each season, especially if you're not time traveling. I mean, that could mean at the minimum it's probably going to take you a little under a year to complete those things. Now, there's plenty other things you could do, like, you know, there's tons of clothing that you can collect and is put into your catalog, so you actually can complete collecting all the clothing, you can complete collecting all the furniture, things like that. And again, this will take a very long time if you're looking to complete these things, which if you want a game that you can spend a lot of time with, that you're going to get a lot of enjoyment out of, this is great for that. It's not like you're just going to play this game for 8 hours and you're done with it, and like you might pick it up and play it again in like 4 years. It's like you're gonna get a lot of mileage out of this game for the price if you like collecting things. Now, the island theme is really cool for this game. I love that island theme, and especially being able to decorate outside. I know I already mentioned that, but being able to put down furniture, like for example, I found an Easter Island head, I believe out of a balloon, very early on in the game, and my first thought was, oh my god, I can put this outside now. I can stick this out on a beach like the real Easter Island heads. And I mean, that's amazing. It's so fun to be able to do that and think of all these interesting ways that you could customize your island and make it look unique. And especially to fit the theme of an island. Like, you can do things on the beaches and make them look like they're being used. Like, you can put benches, you can put like a little table set, you know, things like that. And it lends a real sense of adventure to this. Where on the other ones, it's like, well, you're in a town, you know, you have like a little village. It's already kind of established when you get there. Whereas here, it's like you're just starting off on a deserted island. It's a very more adventurous thing than, oh, I just moved to this new town and, oh, they made me mayor and now I'm basically in charge of spending all my money on fixing up this town. But now, at least, it makes a little bit more sense because you're spending all this time and money, and you can also build things, which adds a whole sense of accomplishment where you're like, I actually made some of these decorations, rather than just collected them from a balloon or bought them in a store. And New Leaf was unique in making you the mayor, and I feel like that is a little lacking in this game, that you don't really feel like you're in charge so much. It really more feels like Tom Nook is in charge, and I mean, that's the way it's supposed to be. But I think that it's nice that they took it in a completely new direction, just like how New Leaf took it in a new direction. And they didn't just do the same thing that they had success with in New Leaf. They went, okay, New Leaf had a cool idea, but hey, let's take it a step further and make it where you start from, like, scratch. Like, you're just in a tent in the middle of nowhere. And I really like that about the game. I think it really makes it unique, and it gives it a very unique feel. And now, on that topic of it being like an island, I love the way that they kind of lock you out of the early parts so that you start with only a very small amount of the island to explore. And then as you progress, you kind of like, you get the pole and, ooh, now I can cross this river and see what's on the other side. You get the ladder and you're like, oh, I can finally go up those cliffs where I could see stuff, you know, up there that I wanted, like flowers. And it just really makes it a lot more exciting, especially for those first few days. Anyone who thinks about time traveling, anyone who's time traveled in previous games, I recommend don't time travel for at least the first like 4 or 5 days, because it's so exciting to build that suspense and that momentum of being able to slowly explore more and more of the island. I can't stress enough how much that fits with the whole time passing slowly. I feel like that does fall apart a bit later, but early on, they play it very well, letting you kind of explore a little bit more at a time. Now, the DIY customization is another really cool idea that they added in, and I touched on that a little bit, but it is a little less fleshed out than I was expecting. But overall, it adds a whole layer of the decorating and the customizing your house. Whereas before, it was more like, oh, well, I'm just collecting furniture and I'm just like collecting things for my house. Now you can actually build and customize things for your house, which, especially early on, helps you make your space seem unique. Like, you don't just have the same exact thing as everyone else. Now, I wish more things were customizable. And again, that is a thing they could add later. They might add more items later, or they might make it so that certain items become customizable with future updates. But I'm just gonna say that as it is right now, I wish there were a few more things that you could customize. But there are a decent amount, and it's hard to complain because there's so much furniture and clothing in this game that I've probably only seen a third of the furniture that you can get, if even that. So it is, you can definitely do some very unique things, and you can definitely get some very cool crafting recipes. So you always want to make sure to grab those bottles you find on the shore, because I've gotten a lot of really cool recipes that way. Now, I was very happy to see the return of Isabelle in this game. Early on, they hadn't really said 100% for sure or not. I didn't know until they had a preview that finally showed her, and I was very excited. So she's one of my favorite characters from New Leaf, and I was especially happy to see her in light of one of my main gripes that I'll get into a little bit later. But I was even more happy to find out that she actually plays a pretty big role on the island once you get her. Every time you start up a new day, she kind of starts making the announcements later on. So it's pretty cool that they gave her, I mean, not a super major role, but at least I'd say close to the same amount of a role as she had in New Leaf. So moving on to the music. The music is great. Again, they have a different song for every hour, and then they have a different remix for that if it's like raining or snowing. I would say it's maybe not as good as New Leaf's. I really like the music in New Leaf, like, a lot. So I might be a little biased on this. But like the 5 p.m. music, that 5 p.m. music is a banger. And the early morning music really has that lonely kind of slow feel. It really fits that early morning vibe. And of course, the KK Slider songs are just fantastic. Those are, I love collecting those. I love having him come for the concerts. I'm so happy that he still does the same thing in this game essentially as he has done in New Leaf in previous games. It just wouldn't be the same game without KK Slider, if I'm being honest. Fishing and bug catching are pretty much the same as they've always been, which is to say a lot of fun. I really like the fishing and the bug catching. One big change to the fishing mechanic is that now you have fish bait you can chum the water with. It's a really nice addition. Like, if you want to catch fish that only show up on the dock or like on the top of the mountain, you don't have to like run around and try to get them to spawn and like scare the other fish away and then like run away until you're off screen and then come back. You can just throw chum in the water and get the fish to show up, and then if it's the wrong size, throw chum again and a new one will show up. It's really great if you just have like that one fish left to catch and you can only get it from that one area. It makes it a lot less time consuming, although making the bait itself, I have some disagreements about that, which I'll get into when I get to the bad parts of the game pretty soon. But I also don't really like the casting mechanic that much. I know it's basically the same as it was in other games, but I just wish they would give you some kind of like target to show where you're gonna throw it, or like the fish would react if it's right on top of their head. You can get a little frustrated trying to get that bobber to go in the right place, and then the fish turns away from it as soon as you do. I just wish you could just plunk even if they just made it less accuracy based, where you could just plunk your bobber down somewhere near the fish and it will sort of become aware of it after a couple seconds instead of having to be facing it directly before it'll notice it. I mean, there's little things like that I don't like about the fishing mechanic, but as far as how it works, it's pretty much par for the course. If you've played any other Animal Crossing game, you're going to be pretty familiar with the fishing and the bug catching. I do also like that you can kind of get customized nets and fishing rods. I really like how the colorful fishing rod has a little rubber ducky as its bobber, and like you can get that star-shaped net once you unlock the bigger shop. I just think it really makes it kind of fun to have a little bit more variety in your tools. Okay, now for the bad parts of the game. Now, before I really get into it, I should mention here that a lot of the bad things or problems can very easily be patched out or fixed later on by adding them through patches. And Nintendo's basically already said that they plan to do this. But the problem is they haven't exactly said what they're going to be added or fixed, and a lot of things are getting delayed because of the current pandemic situation. So I'm just going to talk about the game as it currently sits as of mid-April 2020. So obviously down the road, some of these problems and situations could be fixed, but I'm talking about the game in its release state. There actually have been a couple patches, but really it was just to like fix a bug, an exploitable bug, one of them, and one of them was to fix a problem with the Easter event, the Bunny Day event, and of course the patch that added the Bunny Day event. But I mean, those weren't major game changes, although I should mention that the Bunny Day event was actually something I really didn't like. Maybe I'll get more in depth about that later or in a separate video. But so take all this stuff as these are current problems, and they very easily can be fixed, and I hope a lot of them will be. So, first of all, I mentioned earlier I was really, really happy to see Isabelle. And the reason that that's such a relief to me is they left out so many characters from previous games or gave them extremely, like, severely reduced roles. And I think all the villagers were carried over, aside from, like, the special amiibo ones, like Wolflink and stuff. Epona, like, you know, the ones you could get from amiibos, which I was a little disappointed about, and I hope they do decide to add those later. But a lot of NPCs like Brewster, Red, Leaf, who I know they're bringing Leaf back for the Earth Day event, but I mean, he played a much bigger role in the earlier game. And it seems like Kix just kind of shows up and sets up a stand. He doesn't actually have a store that you can get. It's a little disappointing to see that so many characters were left out or reduced to basically being minor side NPCs, whereas before they were NPCs that you could have build a shop and you could see every day. And even Label, it doesn't seem like you can get her to permanently move to your island as well. It seems like Kix, she just shows up randomly, gives you your quest, and, you know, leaves. But yeah, it's a little disappointing on who they decided to leave out, especially. And on that topic, because some of these characters are left out, or maybe the reason that they were left out, they took out certain things that you can do. Like, for example, without Red, there is no art dealer or art exhibit in the museum. And it's a real shame because art collecting, and especially laughing at the fakes, was one of my favorite experiences in New Leaf. I really loved it when Red showed up and I could try to figure out which ones were fake or real, which I had to look up a lot of the time because some of them were pretty subtle. But it was really disappointing to me that wasn't in this game, and there's not even a wing of the museum for it. Although, again, that is something that I think they could add, and people are speculating that they're going to add because there's that whole staircase in the museum that sort of just leads to nowhere. And I'm not going to go over every single shop or business because I kind of touched on that too with the which characters were left out. And, you know, I understand it's an island. It's not a town. So it's harder to cram it full of different shops. But like Brewster, how hard would it be to just add a coffee shop to the Nook shop, you know? Or even just make these things optional. Like, if you don't want to overcrowd your island, you can just decide, I don't want to build a coffee shop, you know? Or have him at least be a visiting NPC, like Kix. Like, I feel like they really left out way too much from New Leaf, especially when it comes to characters. Another thing that they left out from the previous game, that this one seems especially crazy, considering that we're on an island. The tropical fruit. Why would they leave out the tropical fruit when you can get it from, like, the mystery islands that you use the Nook tickets to get to? It seems like it really fits the game's theme, even more so than it did for New Leaf, and yet they left it completely out. The fruit variety is just totally lacking because of that. I mean, you have the fruit that you can get on each of the starting islands, like apples, pears, peaches, etc., but then the only other thing you have is coconuts and I guess bamboo shoots, although I don't know if it's just me, but I seem to be having trouble getting those to come up consistently. But It seems like, why would they leave out tropical fruit when it would fit this island theme so well? So it really makes it seem like there's not a lot of fruit, and then on top of that, it doesn't seem like you can get perfect fruit. And I know there's some articles online that talk about you can get perfect fruit, but notice that they don't show any video or screenshots of getting perfect fruit. That's because it's not in the game. I have not seen any convincing evidence that it's in the game. Those people writing those articles are just clickbaiting, and their argument is, well, it was in previous games, so it's got to be in this game. That's not proof that it's in this game, considering especially how many things they left out from previous games. Now, will perfect fruit get added later? I sure hope so, because it's something that is sorely needed with the lack of variety in fruit, and it's also one of the best ways to actually earn bells on a consistent basis aside from the stock market. So I'm really hoping that that's a thing that gets fixed. Okay, now here's a few small things that bug me, and I'm just going to kind of go through these all very quickly. Mainly, it's just the lack of certain things and certain design choices that they made. Like, for example, why do all the trees give the same wood? You have over 3 types of trees. Why not make them each give a different type of wood? Why not make it specific? Why do we even need 3 types of wood? It's kind of weird. Just have hardwood and softwood, or just have wood and hardwood. Why do we need 3 different types? There's also a real lack of variety on the Mystery Islands. I mean, I've done like at least 40 of them, 40 plus, and they're just almost always a letdown. I haven't even run into a lot of the really cool types of islands. It seems like it's incredibly rare to actually get a good island. And same thing with the villagers. When I did it last time, I got like 8 birds and just nothing I was looking for. And I don't know if that's just bad luck or if it's just that they have it programmed where you're more likely to get certain types of villagers. I don't know. But another thing, the puns, like when you catch fish and bugs, I know they've always been lame, but they seem worse than New Leaf. It seems like they wanted to make them different, but they didn't really have better ideas. And my initial reaction was, well, why don't they just have them say multiple things so that it's not at least the same thing over and over? And then I started catching squid, which for some reason do have 3 different things that they can say. Why just the squid? I don't understand that choice. Like, if you're gonna have a bunch of lame jokes, just come up with like 3 for each one and give each one 3. I don't understand why it's just the squid. And why can't we buy multiple things from the Able sisters shop in the dressing room? Why do I have to keep going in and out like 15 times every time to get like the different colors and varieties of the same thing? Why can't I just go, all right, I want to buy this, 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 and this, send it straight to my storage? I don't understand why they made that choice. Like, I get, okay, you can try an outfit, you could decide to buy the whole outfit. Okay, have that as one option. And then have another option where you can just select the ones you want to buy and buy them all at once. How hard would that have been? It just seems like they put a lot of time wasters in here, very unnecessarily. Like, okay, we have the game. Don't waste our time. It's already a long game that's going to take months and months, if not over a year, to actually completely fill. Why do you have to put these random time wasters in? This isn't a free-to-play game with microtransactions. We don't need time wasters. Another good example of that is the crafting. How you can only craft one thing at a time. So you have to keep going through the menu over and over and over and over and crafting one thing at a time. And then on top of that, I do really appreciate the stacking. Don't get me wrong. I'm glad that the fruit can stack and you don't have to manually stack it. But how come the clams only stack to 1? Like, okay, I get that they're a living thing. You have to put them in a bucket, whatever. So you're telling me only 1 clam fits in a bucket? Come on. Those should stack at least as high as the fish bait does. And honestly, I feel like the fish baits should stack higher too. I think they should stack to at least like 15 or 20, maybe even 30 each. So you could stack the clams up to 30, you could stack the fish bait up to 30. That's how I think it should work. there's no real point to making them not stack high other than making you run back and forth between your inventory while you're fishing. And on top of that, another thing with the crafting and things like that, how come you can't just craft from your storage? Why does it have to be in my inventory? That's so frustrating. I want to just be able to craft. It would be so, or even just have it where you could dump your materials into the crafting bench, like it has its own storage. That would honestly be the better solution. Have a little box next to your, crafting table that implies it has storage, and you can dump all your wood and iron and clay and whatever into that, so that when you're building, it just shows you how much you have, and you can just build directly from that. It just seems like there's all these little things like that where they put it in just to waste your time and make it so you have to run back and forth and do a lot more menuing that's unnecessary. It plays like a free-to-play game that has time wasters so that you'll pay real money to skip that stuff. But they don't have that. I can't even pay real money to get around this. Not that I would, but it just seems kind of frustrating to me. Now, I'm going to start getting into kind of the bigger problems here. One of the major things that really bugs me about this game is that the villagers seem to just like anything you give them, unless it's something they've given to you before, in which case they'll kind of comment that you're regifting it. But they don't seem to have any real preferences. Like, you can just hand them things and they're like, oh yeah, ooh, thanks. And, they don't... It just seems shallow. It doesn't seem fulfilling when you know that they'll just like anything you give them. Now, I can kind of understand this choice because it makes it easier. Like, for example, if you want them to wear a certain outfit, but they're programmed to not like it, it can be kind of frustrating. But it just makes it really not seem like they have any personality. They don't love it. They don't hate it. They're just like, oh yeah, thanks for this random garbage from your pockets that I enjoy exactly as much as if you gave me something that really suits me or costs a lot. And it really detracts, I feel like, from even the mechanic of giving them gifts. And on that topic, there's really no way to get the villagers you want, unless you feel the need to buy amiibo cards, which right now have become extremely expensive for some of them. And maybe I just don't want to have to pay extra money just to get the villagers I want. And I want to have a way that I can get them randomly that feels fair. And on top of that, amiibos seem to be the only way to actually forcibly remove a specific villager, other than just hoping they decide to move out on their own. Again, there's guides online that say, oh, well, you can shun them, you can hit them with your net, you can report them to Isabelle, even though we all know the mechanic for reporting to Isabelle is in case someone else gave them a catchphrase or clothing that is offensive. It doesn't actually affect them living on the island. Again, these are clickbait articles that prey on people looking up these questions, and then they basically give you a fake or misleading answer. Or an unproven one in this case, because all the anecdotal evidence I've seen of people actually testing these theories, it does not seem like anything gets someone to leave your island quicker. It's just randomized. So your villager that you have made best friends with is just as likely to leave as that ugly gorilla villager that you're ignoring and hitting with the net. Each of those is just as likely to leave. And my own independent testing of shunning villagers and hitting them with the net, I didn't try the Isabelle thing because that just seems obviously wrong. But from what I've seen, it just seems like they randomly get the idea to leave regardless of what you do or don't do with them. And it's frustrating because sometimes you just want to have an open space, and the way that the islands work, if you don't have an open space, you can't even find villagers to recruit. The campsite seems to happen so infrequently for me. I believe, not counting that first camper that you're guaranteed to get because it's part of the story and the mission, I think I've only had one camper since then, which is insane. And not only that, those campers, the ones that you don't bring with amiibos, will randomly kick out a villager. You don't even get to pick which villager. I feel like this is another one of those things where it's a cash grab. Nintendo wants to sell you amiibos. I guarantee you they're going to come out with more sets of amiibo cards. And they just want to make money. They want that to be the only way that you can choose who you're getting and who you're removing. And I feel like that's unfair. I think it should be, okay, yeah, you can use the amiibo cards to do this, or you can use this in-game mechanic. And then the downside is that you have to explore those islands a lot, or you have to hope that you get a good one on your campsite. But instead, they've basically made it just a crapshoot where you roll the dice on who's going to leave your island, and you better hope it's someone you don't like, or hope that it's someone that you don't mind leaving. And then on top of that, you have to spend possibly hours scouring islands, hoping to find a villager that more fits the aesthetic you're looking for. Or, God forbid, you want a very specific villager. I can't even imagine how much time you'd have to sink into it to do that. So that really, really bothers me. I don't like the way that they did that. And, okay, here's the big one. This is going to be either a really big one for you, or it might actually be something that you're not even aware of, depending on if you share your Switch with other family members or a sibling or whatever. They only allow one island per console, not per cartridge, which would be understandable, but kind of crappy of them. Not per account on your Switch, which is how it should work, but per Switch console. This is basically Nintendo, who bases their consoles on family fun and playing with each other and enjoying games together, who value bringing people closer with their games, saying, no, screw you. Buy another $300 console and another $60 copy of the game per person in your household, or you're going to have a bad experience. Sure, you could play on the main person's island, but what you could do is so limited it's not even worth it. You're basically picking, okay, who's the master on this island and who are the slaves who just do chores and make no game progress. It's a fight waiting to happen. If any of you have siblings, you know this is a fight. This is going to be a constant fight of why do you get to control the island and I am just a slave on it. It's just a poor decision. There's no way to get around it. It was a poor decision on Nintendo's part, and if you look at the game's user reviews, you will see that it clearly reflects that. As of now, I don't know if Nintendo is going to start deleting or getting a way to delete those reviews on different sites, but they're getting review bombed. And generally when review bombing happens, it's by very obnoxious fans who are mad about a decision that they see as ruining the game. This is Nintendo getting review bombed by like moms and dads and like kids who are upset because they can't have their own island, and that's insane to me to see that happen. I really hope that Nintendo will eventually change their minds and change the way that worked and let everyone who plays on the console have their own island. There is literally no reason not to do this. If you want to make it's per cartridge, fine. Then at least each player only has to pay $60 to have their own copy of the game, not $360 to have their own console and game, which, by the way, right now you can't even do because there's a shortage of Switches. So it was just a really money-grabbing decision on Nintendo's part that I hope they will backtrack on, because otherwise it really ruins the game, in my opinion, for a majority of players who share a console. And while we're on this topic of playing together, the other huge issue with this game is the online play. The online play is like more than a decade behind other online games. Nintendo just does not know how to do online play. Why are they charging us for this online play service when they can't even bother to have dedicated servers for their online play games? I had the same exact problem with Splatoon 2. I'm paying for this game. I'm paying extra for the online, and it runs like garbage. I can't even play with my friends. When you play with friends, it decides, oh, well, you can be on the same match, but it's not going to put you on the same team. What the hell is that? This game has a very similar problem in that if you want to visit someone's island, it takes forever. Not just for them to open their island, for you to get there, and then if you lose your connection, you lose anything you did on their island. It makes no sense. It's a huge mess. I would expect this kind of online play from a free-to-play game with a, like, just you use your own internet connection, not you're paying for an online service. This is a $60 game that you paid for, and you have to pay the Nintendo subscription. And yet there's no online dedicated server. So it's insanely complicated to actually play with your friends. And they heralded it as one of the major things about this game is being able to visit the other players' islands and being able to have fun with them. Well, they really dropped the ball on it. This game plays much better as a single-player game, honestly. And this is something that they could fix by adding a dedicated server and making it so that you can have your island set to just constantly open or close it. Not you have to open it and close it each time because there's not even things you can do while it's open, so you have to go over there and close it. It's just so far behind the times, and it makes it such a hassle to play with other people that I don't even do it that much. I have 2 friends that play, and I've only been to their islands a couple times because it's such a hassle. And I find that really frustrating. I would like to be able to just jump over there and, visit for a little bit and then come back, quickly. Not like, oh, it takes like 10 minutes because I have to wait for them to open their gate. I have to fly over there, and then, it takes so long. And then I don't want to stay for too long because I'm afraid, oh, well, if I caught a cool fish or something, I'm going to lose it if I lose my internet connection. And it's not like I can hook my Switch up to a wired connection. So you're just at the mercy of how stable your Wi-Fi connection is. But anyway, that's about all I have to say about their online play, which is quite a bit because their online play is horrendous. Okay, so overall, what would I give this game? Do I recommend it? Do I enjoy it? Is it for everybody? This is a bit complicated, honestly. Now, for single player, like if you don't share a Switch and you don't really want to go visit anyone else's island except very occasionally, I'd give this game like an 8 out of 10 in its current state, maybe like a 7.5. There's a lot of room to improve, and they've said that they're going to improve and add things in future updates. So they could even bring it up to a 10 out of 10 very easily just by doing minor fixes, and I guess in some case slightly more major fixes like adding a dedicated server and changing the way the online works. It's not perfect. It really feels to me as if they rushed to get the game out sooner. They delayed once, and I feel like they just didn't want to delay it again, and they put out an unfinished product. That's how it feels to me. I would fully recommend it right now just for its single-player experience. If you've played another Animal Crossing game, you're gonna notice that there are things that are missing or lacking, but I'm hopeful that they're going to add them in a future update. So if this is your kind of game, and you don't really care that much about the online play and you don't share your system, I would recommend it, and I would give it like a 7.5. Now, here's the thing. For people who are really looking for a game to play online with friends, or they share their console with the rest of their family, I can't give it nearly as high of a score. All of the downfalls of the online play, the lack of being able to actually share the game on the console, I would give it a 2 out of 10 in its current state, and that's being generous. If you have 2+ people who want to share the game, just skip it. play New Leaf get a couple copies of New Leaf, play it together with the 2DS. Honestly, you'd be better off just doing local play on the 2DS or the 3DS if you have a 3DS already. It would be a better experience, and for what they want you to pay for 2 Switches and 2 brand new games, you could very easily do that. If you have more than 2 people who want to share the game, I mean, I would say skip it. Play a better online game. There's plenty of other couch co-op Switch games that you could get, like Mario Kart, or even Odyssey has the 2-player option. There's tons of couch co-op and online games for the Switch that actually are worth playing. So honestly, I'd have to say skip this one. I really hate to say that, but yeah, if you're looking for a shared experience or you're looking to play with your family, look at other games. I'm hopeful that future patches and updates will fix this, but since there's no official word that they're planning on changing the 1 island per Switch or fixing the online, I can't recommend it for people who are looking for that. I know that's going to be a controversial opinion, so if you're playing it again, just to reiterate, if you're playing it mostly single player, I'd say definitely get it. 7.5 and could very easily be improved up to a 10. If you're looking to play online with friends very often, or if you're looking on sharing the console, 2 out of 10. Skip it. Hopefully that changes in the future. So if you disagree with me, feel free to leave some comments down below. If you liked the video, make sure to leave a like. It really helps the channel out. Try to keep the discussion civil with each other. I mean, if you want to insult me, I don't care, but I hate seeing people insulting each other in the comments. It just seems rude. I will delete comments if you're harassing other people. Again, I don't really care if you're being insulting toward me. I could care less, but if you like this kind of content, I do actually do a lot of Animal Crossing content. I do really enjoy the game. I just wish that I could play it with friends more, but if you want to see more Animal Crossing content, feel free to subscribe, and other than that, have a good one.